Always I got you. Yeah. All my children tell me everything is gonna be alright. I know it will. Be alright. Oh, yeah. Be
alright. What it is.
What up?
What it do?
Welcome back. Season 2. All new. Brand new. We made it. We got renewed. The network.
Got to check out, it was a little close to sponsors.
They weren't sure, man. But
we didn't know. It was like, I don't know. Y'all was saying some weird stuff on there.
But we here. We made it.
We back. We survived. The enemy came in to take out. I don't know the words of that song.
I noticed. I thought you did. You kind of trailed off there.
Yep. Definitely.
We want to welcome everyone to season 2 of the Sabbath Morning Show. I am your host, Chuck.
Zig.
That is the other illustrious host. And we are just two Christian brothers trying to make sense of it all. Now,
something's up today, right? Because that's a Zig and Zig.
And this says
that's a
Chuck. So it's a little bit different. We got special treat in mind. We kicking the season 2 off in the season of love. So we wanted to give you guys a new type of show just for the month. Now that we're going every other week, we got 2 special shows this month, and they're all focused on love.
Not your love.
Yeah, not my love, but love. That's right. Heart.
So, we might as well just come on.
Come on in onto the show. Come into the studio.
Come on. What's up?
Hello.
Yes, they were backstage waiting to come onto the show.
So if you don't recall, Miss Love here was a stand-in for Chuck. I think that was episode 17.
Yeah, episode 17 of season 1.
I actually remember episode 17.
And this is why we normally don't do this, because there's always a child in need of something.
So our normal disclaimer usually runs that there's going to be some things that we say that might run afoul of what might run afoul of what the conference might approve of. However, today's disclaimer is we got kids.
Yes. Yep, we got kids. No one got
us is here, and both of them is there.
Yep.
Yes.
You are bound to be interrupted.
Yep.
We will, it's a family show today.
That's right. But
so with that also being said, this is a relationship show. We know a lot of y'all came through thinking we was going to be talking relationships, and everybody want to talk about sex. Normally, that's the first thing. Y'all talk about sex. Listen, ain't going to be no PB and J on this show. Right? We got kids. We want to keep our family rating, and so ain't going to be none of that.
And good morning, happy Sabbath. We see you out here, Rachel. Welcome to the show. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening.
Rachel is like a true day one. She was on she on every sermon. She on every show. What's up, Rachel?
We gotta get her some merch, man.
Absolutely. Once we get some.
Once we make some, that's right.
Yes. Once we make some. Cricket.
Once we make some. The t-shirt press.
All right. So
see, there you go.
So what do we got in store? I know since we're not focusing on sex, we're going to talk about what? Communication.
Today we're talking about communication. Today we're talking about say what?
Finance, right?
Finances. And we're going to talk about love.
Ooh.
Not you. But love. So we want to take this moment to say thank you for chilling with us. We know that we got some day ones out there, so we definitely appreciate the love. So take this moment to stop right now. If you feel like you want to listen to the rest of this, like, share, and subscribe, and tell your friends, come on by.
That's right. That's right.
We want to start us off with a little prayer, and considering that Lovely's been here before, and she's prayed, Charles has prayed, and I prayed.
There you go.
All right, let's pray. Kind and gracious Heavenly Father, thank you for another day, Father. Thank you for waking us up this morning. Thank you for just all the blessings that you've given us. Please continue to be with us throughout this Sabbath day and let our time together be fun and fruitful. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. And if you hear a squeaking sound, that's just the mascot of the show, or as we like to call Appa. So he's been...
who I wanted to name Luke, by the way.
It's true, but... it's Appa for now, at least. But yeah, definitely thanks for tuning in. We see you, Chris. Chris is actually part of the other trifecta of our couple group. We just couldn't bring everybody on because it would be too chaotic. It would just be like crossfire, people yelling, people screaming. we usually hang out like that, which is fine, but on the show it may not come.
It might not work out that way. It might not be so smooth.
But if y'all,
can't throw something at people when you online, and I'm pretty sure there will be some. I'm pretty sure there will be some throwing of things.
But so, if you want to see them, they were on the Pathfinder episode.
Absolutely,
they're the Power Pathfinder couple.
Yeah,
and they'll be back.
They will be back.
I'm projecting or prophesying. Huh?
There you go.
Like YouTube.
No, not a YouTube prophecy. This ain't one of them. I ain't gonna say Jesus told me. Jesus told me to tell you. I'm telling you that I'm thinking there's gonna be a lady show.
Mm. There you go. Bring it. This one's for the ladies. Ladies first.
Blue.
Oh.
There we go. All right. So as we are moving along, we normally do talk about some current events. There's a lot going on still.
There is. And we will get to that.
Absolutely. And we will get to that. But today, it's all about love.
That's right. We wanted to give everyone a break, right? Y'all been the election season, the impeachment season. Maybe I think everybody could just take a break and remember, hey, you got someone special, or you know someone special in your life, or you're thinking about someone special in your life.
Absolutely.
We can help maybe make that reality and give you some tips along the way.
And I also would like to add a little testimony from a kid, right? So she gets in the car and she says, I want to listen to a Black History song.
Look at that.
So then she says, so we're listening to What's Going On. Classic, never to be outdone by the original. And she goes, what is hate? And I was like, oh, that's a deep question for a 5-year-old. So, I explained as best I can that hate is what destroys people. And to remember that love conquers all. So we actually have like a script for the day. And also want to, so even all the stuff going on in the world, right? Love is what we should be doing. We've heard a lot of sermons over the past couple of weeks. And we'll get to that too. And hopefully we'll hear from those pastors. Plan is to interview them later on. But we've had Pastor Rome from Seattle.
Right. This is from the February Live that's happening.
February Live. So check out February Live on the Pontiac Outside Facebook page and YouTube.
That's right.
Give that a like and subscribe. These pastors is bringing the heat.
Yeah, they are.
And so, they bring in the heat, and we're gonna bring that to y'all too. But definitely one of those messages within what they were talking, one of the pastors was saying was that, talking about loving your enemies.
That's tough.
So we're gonna start with Definitely having some technical difficulties over here.
I heard it disconnect. You're like,
Yeah, we got a new setup, so we're trying it. So we still here. As long as you can hear us, that's the important thing. So yeah, definitely, man, we want to talk about love. So we're gonna start this off with some questions between y'all, us, right? So here's another little thing, right? So you're a little quiet, but it's okay. So we are both licensed clinicians, social workers, with certifications and credentials in therapy, right? It might not sound like it. I know it might not sound like it sometimes, but yes, I am considered a therapist. And so we're gonna kind of lead the questions part, right?
This is a therapy session? You drive me into a therapy session?
I ain't trying to pay for it.
Remember that TV show?
Right.
So, on the question of love, the question is, what is it?
Sorry, we're having some children difficulties. No, you cannot.
Only take one parent. Don't try to get out of this.
You'd be surprised. Sometimes it takes two. You got to negotiate with these little parents. No.
All right. So you answer.
So me answer. What is love? Love is a choice.
Just one answer. I don't need the therapist.
Can I give an explanation for my answer?
We can get to that.
Love is a choice. That's my answer.
All right.
What is love? Love is an experience.
An experience.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. I feel it. I would say love is a verb.
That was my second choice. I was thinking about that, but I was like, yeah.
Verb. And so remember your answer, because then we can break this out. So we're gonna hear from Miss Love, or no? She's trying to defuse the bomb.
Yeah, she's trying to defuse the bomb.
All right, we gonna keep this moving. So let me switch this up. How about that? I feel like you caught me doing something I wasn't supposed to do. Like
All right. So what is love?
Did you answer?
Yes, I said love is an experience.
Okay. Oh, it's an experience.
Yes.
Okay. Love to me is definitely more than a feeling. I think that love is, like she said already, but I think it's a choice. I think it's something that you actively have to do. I think love is an action.
So you just copying off of Rachel, I see.
No. Oh, I didn't even see that. Okay, Rachel. Okay, Rachel. No, I didn't even see that. But love is an action. So something that you have to do every day. I feel like when I was younger, I thought it was just like, a word and a feeling. Mm-hmm. But I've come to realize that it's not just a word and a feeling. It's more than that. And I think that comes with experience and just life. And you realize that love, honestly grows like all the time. It's something that's movable. Mm-hmm.
That's deep. Okay, now you can get it.
I think I won't say most. I think a lot of people think that love is a feeling, right? So you enter into this relationship, there's love, it feels good, there are butterflies, but that's not sustainable. If you think that that's what love is, once that goes away, what happens, right? You still need to be able to put in the work. You still need to choose love each and every day, even if you're not feeling the person, even if you're having a rough day, even if they tick you off, you still need to choose love. Love is also an action. It changes, it grows. It's something that continuously needs to have adjustments made toward.
Yeah.
All of that. And we also want to hear from you. We see some comments. So we have love is doing what is in the best interest of the other person while not abusing yourself.
That's deep.
I love that.
That's deep. Got a lot of message in there. So yeah, absolutely, I agree with all of that, especially with love being an action. And so I think people often think about love as a feeling. And the thing that I typically kind of go into is like, when we think about love, there's definitely different degrees of love. And oftentimes we go into these relationships and we assume that just because we love somebody, we should be with them. And that's not always the case. And some people learn it the hard way. I know I did. I definitely have done that in the past. And so what I would like leave people with is the thought that if you say, I love this person, then you need to not think, oh, well, we should be together, but you should think, what does that mean? What does that mean now? And so love being an action, the first action you should take is, once you have that feeling that you love somebody, the action that you should take is you should investigate whether you should be with them. And that's real talk. Oftentimes, we make jokes all the time about how people say they get in these relationships and they be like, well, what happened? Like, but daddy, I love him. Right? It's just a feeling, right? It don't, and feelings are fleeting. Like, think about it, like, I love comic books. That don't mean I'm gonna marry him, right?
Right. It's a different type of love.
We love a lot of different things all the time. You know, you be like, well, I love this ice cream flavor. You know, I love this pen. That's what Candace would say. You know, like, but love definitely has different levels. And I think one of the reasons why love, at least the word, kind of becomes like a weird vibe, has like a weird thing to it, is because we use it for everything. Right. And so then you start saying, desensitized, that's the word I'm trying to say. Like, that word gets desensitized. So by the time you're like, oh, I love you, it's like, okay, what does that mean? Like, do you love me like ice cream? Like, you just get all the time? Like, what exactly does that mean? Right.
Exactly.
Some good comments. Love is sacrificial.
I love chicken, even though I don't like chicken. I like that.
Love is a cool decision. And I think that's
so the problem with love from this perspective is that I can't play it out here. Love from this perspective. There we go. Boom. Love from this perspective, or from the English perspective, actually, is kind of in trouble, because we have this minimized definition of it. And so if you're really trying to figure out what love means and what it is, take a look at the Greek. Come on, you cemeterians.
I didn't go to cemetery, but I know
that's another thing we're gonna talk about on a later show. But people cemeterians know all about love from the Greek. Come on, cemeterian, tell me about this Greek word love.
Well, in the comments, they mentioned one type, the agape love. You know, you have the different types of love, brotherly love, love like that you experience with, between you and your significant other, love you experience with God, that agape love, and that really God has for all of us, and that we try to show others, And I think you make a good point that we don't do a good job within the English language to break the different types of love down. I think the fallback, though, is, you can really say, I really like, this thing. And actually, it is a true story. I
don't know what's about to come out his mouth.
When we were dating at Andrews, we had just started dating, and like, she yells out the window. We had just come back from some date, and she was like, I really like you. And like, she emphasized like it was italicized, like in the air. But that was where we were at that stage. It would have been inappropriate to be like, oh, I love you. Because like, well, we just started dating. So it's like, I really like you. I think we jump to love too soon, right? I mean, the Bible talks about don't awaken love, too soon. There's stages to it. It's built. I think that's what we were all kind of getting towards, that it's not just this feeling that I have today when everything's good. Love can endure all things because it's built, right? It has a good foundation in Christ, and it's a fortress that, that we're supposed to be continuously building, so that when tough times come, it's not so easily broken.
Oh, absolutely. And then we can go to the love languages, which is your specialty.
You don't know my love language?
Love language, right? We had this interesting conversation. Was this last week? We were talking, and we were talking about love languages, and there was this pause. Like, do you know the love language?
Right.
And so it's interesting because
do they know the love languages? Put down the love languages if you think you know them well.
I want to hear from our last gift winner.
Right. She
got the book.
Hello.
And look, her love language book looked better than mine. So I was like, oh man, this is a nice book. So Ms. King, I know you're out there. What's the 5 love languages? So we got these love languages, right? So we talk about touch, time, right? Quality time.
Yes.
Words of affirmation, gifts, and then acts of service. Right? And so that book is really interesting. And if you haven't read it, definitely would encourage you.
We read it as part of our premarital counseling.
Yep, we did.
Yeah, we didn't read it as a part of it. We took the quiz as a part of it.
Everybody takes the quiz because it's online.
Yeah. It's free. And that's true. That's actually, we should put that in the comments. Actually, a free.
No, I would not encourage that.
Why?
Because oftentimes what happens is people will take the test.
I'm not reading.
You get like a surface response, right?
Sure.
But when you read the book, you'd be like, "Oh snap, that's what that means."
Yes.
And then you go, and so like, yeah, if you're just doing it for fun, then yeah, you take the test. But if it's like if you're really trying to engage and trying to learn about yourself, learn about your partner, then you gotta read the book. Which brings us to our sponsor today. So again, we're gonna give out another love languages book today. I'm not sure how we're gonna do that. Maybe we'll do a little.
Another love language. We got another book.
No. I got another one too. So then the other book. We got 2 gifts. We got 2 gifts.
Bring it up closer. Up closer.
Bam. Right.
No.
Now, anyways, this book is The Road Less Traveled by M. Scott Peck, which is, an amazing, I'd say, companion book to the 5 love languages. And this definitely say what?
What's it about?
This is more about the psychology of love, and has a lot to do with about how you yourself interpret all this stuff. And so reading this book will teach you a lot about yourself. And the goal is obviously if you learn more about yourself and if you're able to love yourself better, then you can love other people. Right. So love languages and The Road Less Traveled be coming to a subscriber near you.
There you go.
No, but all that to say too, so those 5 love languages, I don't think they stand alone. Because I think that's like part of the stew that you have to that you have to have as part of your collection. Because there's more to it than that, right? So I was watching this thing the other day, was like, where the guy said, I agree with the fact that the 5 love languages are important, but I also have other love languages, right? Like laughter, right? So it's kind of like, some people like to, be made to laugh, and they like to make people laugh. And so, there's definitely some other parts to it that probably maybe it's a subcategory.
Yeah.
An act of service, right? Making somebody laugh could be considered an act of service.
But not just that. I think I remember seeing something once that said, even though we all have our primary love languages, you do need to give all of those types of love to your partner, right? So I think too, like last night where we're rehearsing music for the praise team, and I don't remember what was going on, and my husband said, "Yes, I agree. I affirm you." And Adam, he's like, "What? I'm giving affirmation." And my response was actually, "Well, that's great. I appreciate that, but that's not my love language, and that's not what I needed right now in that moment. So while I appreciate that you were affirming me, a hug would have been better."
Yeah, and it's There you go. And I think that's one of the important parts of the love languages is figuring out and understanding what your partner's love language is so that you can give them love. If I'm constantly giving you flowers and you don't like flowers, that's never going to build and develop, the love that you need. So that's really, to me, one of the big takeaways is being able not just to understand yours, but understand your partner so that you can give them the love that they need.
Yeah. And I think that's really it's actually kind of hard to do. Sometimes like you read the book and you're thinking, you're like, okay, well, now I know what your love languages are. I'll just do it. That's really hard because a lot of times you give the love languages that you want to the other person. Even after reading the book, you're still like, well, is this going to really work? So you have to like trust the process as well and do a little deeper thinking on what you may think about your spouse as well.
And sometimes we kind of get stuck, right? So if your love language is acts of service, I can't give in the same service and thinking fill your love tank, because that's now become a habit. That's not an act of love that's genuine anymore. So it's complicated. And I think it extends to families. Like I use love languages with people that I work with, like the online site, because there's a teen quiz, there's a kid quiz. Like I would ask parents, do you know the love language of your child? Are you giving your child the love in the way that they want to receive it?
Absolutely. I remember when we were going through like this love, before we went through love language things, I remember her love language, like she likes touch, right? And all of a sudden, like
not
one day
that kind of touch.
she's like, what are you doing?
Stop touching me.
And so it's definitely important. But what you were talking about, Chuck, about this idea about building up. So the book refers to it as like filling up the tank, right? So like you have this love tank, and when you're meeting your spouse's, your partner's needs, and this is a Christian show, so you unmarried people, right? But no, but when you're filling up your partner's tank, when something goes wrong, right? When love goes wrong and you messed up, that's considered a withdrawal. So when you make these withdrawals, because you filled up the tank, or hopefully you filled up the tank, it don't really hit too hard, or maybe you definitely feel it, but you're able to bounce back and you're able to reconcile a lot easier. It's not to say it's going to be hard. It's not going to be hard, but it'll be a little bit easier if that tank is full, and you can because that means you have some reserve, right? It's like you have all this love, and you be like, well, you can. It's easier to think, I know they didn't really mean to do this.
Yeah.
Right. I know they didn't mean that. I'm in my feelings right now, and let me just take a moment and I'll come back to it. But if your tank is empty, and I want to use the analogy of not just like a tank, like people think tank like a gas tank, but I think more like a cistern, right? So it's like this jar. And so it's kind of like if that jar is empty. And one of the issues about love and being in a relationship is if you don't love yourself, usually your jar is cracked. So your partner could be pouring into you, but if your jar is cracked and you haven't done the work to repair yourself to be able to hold what they're giving, then you got a whole lot of issues also, and your relationship will always suffer because of it.
I see people out here hitting people with triple combos of love tips there.
I'm smiling because like in full disclosure, I really just recently in the past like year or so learned how to really speak Pernell's love language. And to combine the two books, like I didn't love myself the way that I needed to, right? We come into relationships with baggage. We come into relationships broken and expecting that this other person's going to love us back to wellness. But if we're not able or willing to do the work that we need, how can we then pour into someone else? And so there were a lot of moments early in our marriage where his tank was broken, my cistern, his cistern was empty. because my cistern was broken.
Mm.
He was actively pouring in, but because mine was broken, I didn't necessarily feel it and couldn't give it back to him. And so it's something that it takes time to figure it out. And I think in a lot of marriages, people give up before getting to that place where you figured out how to do it well.
Oh, absolutely.
Wow. Yeah, there's some good. I think we've covered some of the questions that were coming in the comments. People were asking, you know, then so what do you do when you don't feel like loving someone in their love language? You know.
So I think part of that, when you don't, and that's why we say like love, you have to have more than love in your relationship, right?
Mm-hmm.
And your love can't just be built around that feeling, right? Because a lot of times people put their focus on that feeling, and they're like, "That's it, I'm good.
Yeah.
We love each other. That's all we need." Wrong.
No.
There's going to come a point where you can be like, I can't stand this person. And that's going to be the like the ever-present thought. Like you can't think nothing else but I can't stand you. Get away from me.
Okay, relax. Take it down a notch.
I just saying, I think sometimes that happens when you wear tight pants, you know, sometimes.
Listen, that's why
around the house constantly wearing tight jeans and just like, you know what, I can't stand this dude in tight jeans.
Like never wear the pants I bought him. All he wanted to do was wear the pants his mama gave him.
Shout out to Pastor Ron. He's watching in the comments. And his wife. Welcome to the show.
Absolutely. So
but I think this is actually a good segue because we're talking about, you know, love and what to do when you don't feel like love. But I think a key aspect of that is communication, right? You have to be able to communicate those feelings in a healthy way. And that's our second focus point of the show is communication. Communication is key. It's cliche.
It is.
But it's the truth, right?
I like what Michelle said too.
Yeah, me too.
What is she saying?
Michelle said, like isn't always there, but love always needs to be present. So our 4-year-old, he had a bad day one day, and when I picked him up from daycare, and he said, "But you still love me, mommy?" I said, "Yes, I still love you. Even if I don't do the right thing." Yes, Zachary. Even if you don't do the right thing. It's the same thing in our marriages. I may not like you, but I need to know that I love you and that I choose you and that love is a verb. So I'm going to continue to love you even if I don't like you right now. And if there's a moment in your marriage where you don't like them and you're feeling like you don't love them and you don't know what to do, I would suggest speaking to someone about that, a pastor and a therapist potentially, and your partner.
Absolutely. So communication. So I have my own version of the 5 love languages. People who are close to me know this, right? So communication in a relationship is definitely going to be way more important than love. And because that's like the center of it all, right? And it's interesting how people go through these relationships and not be able to like talk to their partner or communicate what's going on. And so for me, I would say like the subcategory, read your 5 love languages, but in a relationship, you absolutely need communication. You absolutely need, so love is required, right? It is a requirement. Some people, and I know I've studied this, but it's interesting how people go into arranged marriages and there is no love present. So they have to build it on communication, right? So like this now I'm like, I haven't met you, I don't know you. And then some research shows that arranged marriages actually do better than traditional marriages. Part of it is because they go into it with an immediate sense of respect for the other person. They go into it having to start from scratch and they're communicating, right? So it's like, we're married. I don't know you, you don't know me. So we have to start from somewhere. And granted, there's some counter argument to that too about obligations and what does that mean too, because I think a lot of people get kind of trapped in those relationships. But there are people when they grow to love versus these people who started out like, I love him, I love her. But when the love is able to grow, your relationship will flourish a whole lot better. And communication is like the highway for all this other traffic, right?
Mm.
Kind of like, even if you think about, like, people talk about, well, sex is important. Well, you got to communicate what your needs are, what your wants are, and all this other stuff, right? Talk about money. You got to communicate how much is this and what you want to spend and how we're going to spend it and blah, 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 blah. But how do you, I guess the question, right, is what is your style of communication? The people in the comments too.
Yeah, so I think for us, I think we have multiple methods of communication. I think it kind of varies, right? Like, she's probably communicates more like verbally.
Oh yeah,
She does talk a lot. Actually, we joked, like, what was it, like last night? Like, she'll tell me, like, she's talking, and I'm supposed to listen, right? So she'll be talking.
Usually how that works.
But it's like midnight, and I'm like, I'm tired, and we're in the bed. But she'll say, "Oh, you don't have to listen. I just want to talk to you."
Yeah.
And so she'll like literally talk me to sleep, like, because she's just talking. And like, it took me a while to like really, because I'd be like, "Babe, I'm so tired." She's like, "Oh, you don't have to listen. I just want to talk to you." And I'm just like, "Okay." Like, I'm gonna go to sleep. I'm tapping out there. It's like, but we've like had to like learn each other's communication styles. Mm-hmm. I'm one who doesn't verbally communicate, I think, so well.
I would agree with that.
Yeah. So that's definitely true. I'm definitely more the talker. I will more easily say how I feel, and it takes me a little bit longer, I think, like to get rid of my feelings. Whereas Charles, or not get rid of, but to, tie them in a bow and, fix them all up. Whereas like Charles is more of the person, he's like quiet and silent. But once we talk through something and we're done, then it's done for him. And I'll still be holding on to stuff. I'm like, I know we talked about this, but I'm still mad about it. I need a day.
You guys got some of that going on?
So I would say we are the opposite, where he is the talkative one. He wants to kind of talk about something as soon as it comes up, and once we've talked about it, he's kind of good, right? He doesn't hold any animosity. He's let it go, but he wants more conversation about it to reflect that I've thought about it. Mm-hmm. So I am the less communicative one. Mm-hmm. I am the one who I might need a little more time to think about something. I might not want to talk about something right in that moment. Mm-hmm. But I'm going to hold on to it a little bit. But it's also changed. I think there was a time when I didn't actively love myself, where I became very defensive during our conversations. Mm-hmm. And so we could be having a general conversation about us, and I would take it as, no, it's me. This is what I did wrong. This is against me. And I would very quickly shut down. And instead of having kind of a fruitful back and forth conversation where we're both engaged and we're both active in this conversation, I'm kind of in my feelings and unable to communicate what I'm thinking, what I'm feeling, what I need, and it wasn't productive at all. So I think we just got to a place of healthy communication.
Yeah, and one of the comments brought up a good point. They're saying that with arranged marriages, there's no divorce isn't an option,
right?
Whereas in our society, our culture, right, there's an option to divorce. There's always a, I'm out. And I think that does play a part in some of the way we behave in marriages. Because if that's always in the back of your mind, that I have this emergency exit thing, right?
But don't get it twisted. And I think, to be real, from a Christian perspective,
I like Christmas.
Right. So from a Christian perspective, so I remember we had like this dope relationship discussion at church, and one of our elders in the church, they've been married for forever. That's all we know, is that they've been married. And then for them to be like, yeah, divorce, we almost got divorced. The whole church was, oh, like, not you. And so I think, and there's definitely that issue. I know our church has an issue with it, and I know other churches do, where they put this thing on people where it's like, divorce isn't an option, right? And it shouldn't be. And I think that's what divorce shouldn't be an option. But again, I think the key to that is communication, right? And so you can create a situation in your life and in your relationship that divorce isn't an option. But if you don't, sadly enough, it will be an option for some people because, there's so many relationships that are, I guess I would say, that don't live up to their fullest potential, because the needs of one person wasn't communicated to the other, and the other didn't receive that communication.
I think realistically, I think divorce, not to say I'm pro-divorce, but I think some marriages do need a divorce, right? If we're talking about issues of safety, if we're talking about going back to D. Rich's comment earlier, where he said you're pouring into the other person in a way that's abusive toward yourself, right? That's when we need to look at, should these two people be together? Because maybe they should have never gotten married in the first place.
Absolutely.
And so they're trying to sustain this thing that was never supposed to happen, that was never in the plan.
Absolutely. A lot of people, and again, a lot of people end up in relationships where maybe the friendship was really great, and you're like, oh man, this is great, this is good, and then it's kind of like, we should get married, and then they do, and it's like, whoa, we shouldn't have did this. right? Some people, I know this, like the scripture talks about what happens when, I forget where that is. Some of you cemeterians will have to put the scripture in the comment, but it talked about, this idea of being equally yoked. And so I heard a sermon once, and maybe Pastor Ron talked about this, I'm not sure, but being equally yoked doesn't mean that you're equal. It doesn't mean that you bring the same thing. It means that you're both putting in the same, or at least the way I interpret it, is that you're both putting in the same amount of effort.
And I think when you talk about being equally yoked, I think a lot of times when we as Christians hear, are you equally yoked? The first thing that we say is, are you the same religion as me?
Right.
Yeah, so we're equally yoked. No. Like, so what if you're the same religion as each other?
That's a part of it.
Yes, it definitely is a part, but it's more than that. And a lot of times we're just like, well, we found another Christian, who is, well, whatever we are, since we're not necessarily affiliated with the church, but all of that. And then you sit there and you're like, oh wait, we're not meeting each other's needs in all these other places. So maybe may not be a good option for you.
Yeah. And I think that's why it's important to take the time to build that relationship. Even when you're engaged, like you can still turn back. Like it's not too late. It's not too late.
I remember telling people that, well, like I'm like, you sure? I'm that guy. If you tell me that you get married, up until the day of the wedding, I'm like, you sure you want to do this?
Sure,
you sure you want to do this? Because
I remember on the day of our wedding, I think one of your boys.
No, that wasn't my wedding. That was Paul's.
Paul's wedding. We were somebody's wedding.
We were in the limo, and one of the toast of the groomsmen, the guy was like, "We will turn this thing around if you're not down for this." And he was like, "We got all the good stuff in here anyway." So he was like, "We can just keep on somewhere else. You don't have to go." But the point of his toast in the car, the groomsmen, was like, make the right decision. Don't just rush into things, and communication, I should say, is a key part of that. And one of the things that I thought that was great, and I'm gonna run up here in a second to find this book, but it's called Intellectual. Okay. No, I want to give it away too, though. It's called Intellectual Foreplay.
That is a good book.
It's a book of just questions, and it helps you to find maybe the words, if you're like me, to ask the key questions that you need to understand from your spouse, all the way from cleaning, do you clean every day? Do you clean? Are you messy? Are you neat? To bathroom hygiene. Do you put the cap on? Right.
Yeah.
And it's like those little things that you fight about, and it's like you start asking the questions like, wait, you don't put the cap back on? You don't squeeze from the bottom?
Yeah.
I don't know if I can do but it helps to get those items out in the open, and I think it's just a really good source to communicate that.
It was really great. Like this book, like we always talk to people and talk to each other. Yeah, It's a great book.
I'm kidding.
Oh gosh. So he'll be gone for forever because I don't think we know where it's at. Oh, you do? Okay. But what I will say about that book is there were so many times when Charles and I were in the beginning stages, right before we got married, and even after, we would just go through that book and pick out questions sometimes late at night, and we'll just spend time answering these questions. And I always thought it was great because you start off with, do you keep the cap on the toothpaste? You know, and you could end up talking about, you know, what your heart really desires and what you end up loving and liking. And you're just like, how did we get so deep into this, you know?
Yeah. Do you check your pockets before doing laundry?
Oh, yeah. See, that's
See?
it.
That's
That would, to me, that would be an act of love. Because when I'm at work,
You heard me say no, I don't check.
and so I know. There's been plenty of times where I'm like going to work and I just, you know, you jump, you get in the house and you just throw everything in the laundry room, or you get to your room, you're like, I just got to get out of this stuff, and then everything's still in the pocket, and then I'll be like, hey, have you seen my pen? Like, I had this really nice pen I really like, and then like I'm going through the laundry and I'm like,
Listen, I can do the laundry or I can check the pockets. I don't know that I can do that.
It brings up a good point. Those little things are excuses for bigger issues.
absolutely, it's not the nail.
Right.
It's definitely not.
It's not the nail.
Yeah. So like, look, like some other questions. This one's like, how do you handle stress? How do you treat others when you're stressed? Do you throw things when you're angry? What qualities do you respect in your partner? You know, and it's like so many different questions. This book is really great. You should give it away.
Yeah,
We will.
we will. That'll be part of it.
Boom.
We got three books
Three books.
between now
Do I
and
need
the
to
end of
write
the
this
month.
down?
No, these are books that we love. So we
Your own pockets.
That's why I like you, dear.
all right. So we had a question: is it a matter of divorce? Is it a matter of relativity? I've had people say we had the same issues as the other couple, and we stayed together, and they divorced. Is it a one thing? I don't think it's a one thing fits all.
It can't be a one size
No,
fits all. I mean, it
absolutely
depends
not.
on every couple. Some couples, like when you do couples therapy, one of the first questions you ask is like, what are your goals? What do you want?
Yeah.
Because if you're coming in saying, well, one person's saying I want to figure it out, and the other person's like, no, that's it, I'm done. It's really hard to make gains if you don't want to both make improvements in that relationship. So it has a lot to do with each individual relationship. Are they willing to make the changes and to do the growth that they need to? Because if the problem is that I'm broken and I can't pour into you, and I can't see that I'm broken and I'm not willing to do the work, yeah, divorce is far more likely to be an option than two people who come in and say it's broken. We both want to fix it. We'll do whatever it takes.
And I think part of that too comes in where people get into relationships and without a purpose. And you know, part of that purpose of being in a relationship is wanting to build up the other person, right? It's like what, you know, what the scripture says, like, love your wives like you love your own skin, right? And it's kind of like,
Paraphrase.
I mean, but yeah, listen, you know what I'm trying to say. Listen, I ain't go to no cemetery. Listen, it's an inside joke.
Okay.
So yeah, people not having that purpose for their relationship. A lot of people go into relationships that they think are nice, right? I think, you know, it's a really good idea. It's a really good feeling to be with this person. I like the idea of marriage. And then they go hard in it. And then when they're in it, they kind of realize, one, maybe they didn't want to be there, or two, they never had the aptitude or the skills to actually meet the other person's needs whatsoever. And so part of the issue then is a two-sided, because if the other person kind of knew their own value and knew their worth, then sometimes a lot of people end up in relationships that they shouldn't be in for that reason too. And so, yeah, I don't think it's a one size fit all. And I think you could have one person that's completely happy in a relationship, another person that's completely unhappy in a relationship. And then it's, you know, bridging the two of those has to come through building out some type of purpose. At least that's my take on it.
Yeah, and I think definitely again communication. That's the fundamentals, and when you don't communicate, that can lead to divorce because the problems that occur as a result. But it looks like speaking of communication, we got some communication happening in the comments.
Right. Look at this. Too many people think marriage needs to be fair. Love is like. What do you think about that?
I think. I mean, I think it goes back to communication, right? Because if we're looking at it as in fair, okay, well, it's not a contract in the sense of, okay, well, let's check the scales. You put the kids to bed and I did the dishes. One was more work than the other, which means now you need to do the laundry. Because I think if we look at a marriage or a relationship like that, which I have, it's not helpful. Like you don't gain anything from that. You don't get anything from that versus the communication, being able to have the communication of, hey, here are the chores or the things that like I like to do or I would prefer to do, and here are the ones that you prefer to do. I think when we also factor in kind of gender roles and norms, that plays a factor too, right? Because if you came from a home where your mom cooked and cleaned and raised the kids, and you now expect me to do all of those things because that's the relationship that you had. If I'm on board with that, great. If I'm not on board with that, we need to communicate those things. So we did talk about kind of chores before we came in. I was on board with doing the laundry. I never agreed to check no pockets. 10 years deep, and this is the first time we're having a conversation about checking pockets. But we kind of came in with me saying like, yeah, I'm good with doing the laundry and folding it. It was like folding it, and he was good with putting it away. And then it came to a time when that needed to happen. He's like, I never said that. Like, what do you mean you never said like that? That is what we agreed on. So it's something that continually has to be negotiated.
But I think when it comes to fairness too, I think like it needs to be fair. I think yes, there does need to be some fairness, and I think because I think if you go in, if I were to adopt this thing that says love is not fair, then I would. I think
nobody asked. Nobody asked.
if I went into this with the thought or feeling that I bought into this idea that love wouldn't be fair, then to me that sounds like keep taking score. Like when people take score in a marriage, right? That's not an act of love, right? And so love being that action where I'm going to put this person before me. And so if I'm doing that, and if the other person on the other side is doing that, then you do get this fairness, right? So that's the established fairness, is that I'm going to look out for your best interest, and you're going to look out for my best interest. And oh, by the way, that also includes having grace. So when you slip up, I'm not going to hold that against you. Therefore, love is always fair.
But to also take it back to communication, I also need to communicate what I need and want, right? I'm the type of person, and I know Crystal is too, where we just do.
Why are you bringing Crystal in?
Because that's my girl.
Oh.
It's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing where you just do, right? You just take on. You see things that need to be done.
Ladies only podcast.
Where you see things that need to get done, and so you just do them. And sometimes in doing all of those things build up, and that stress builds up. And instead of communicating to your partner,
hey, Charles in there too, yeah.
Hey, this is getting to be a little too much, and I need some help doing these things. We just keep doing, and we're stressed out and we're frustrated. And so it takes communication to
Candace speaking.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
That's right. Oh, you just gonna throw me.
I didn't mean to fire a shot. My bad.
But listen, we all have this agreed upon notion about who we are in this relationship, and Chuck, Chris, and Candace all fall into the same boat, and me, Frank, and Lovely all fall into the same boat. We be like, Charles, you on that island? Over there.
That's cool.
It's so helpful when you can communicate that. Like, as someone who recently became aware of her emotions in the way that she needed to be, like, it takes so much stress off to be like, yo, I can't. Like, I need help. Here's what's going on. Here's where I am. But and he's like, hey, just tell me what you need. I was like, for real? Like, all along we could have been doing it this way. I could have just told you what I needed, and you would have filled the gap. Like, we could have been doing this whole time. And so communication is huge.
And that's just interesting, because I told Charles that, like, I think about a week or so ago, I was like, listen, bro, like, if you would have been communicating the way you needed to all along, and needed to meaning like not to say like, oh, you should, but like needing to in a way that's going to benefit you and your relationship. If you do that from the start, it won't be so hard down the line. And so like what Candace is explaining is like, yeah, like she'll go through stuff and sometimes I'll be like, what are you doing? Like it's so much. I'm like, what are you doing? And she'll be like, oh, I got to do this. I got to do this. I got to do this. I'm like, no, you don't. Like, you can do that.
Right.
And then she'll stop and be like, oh, it happened this week too. Where he was like, I had to do this. I had to do this. I had to do this. And I was like, really? And I just listened. I was like, there was no other way to do it. You had to do all of that. There was no other time. And she was just like, yeah, this was the only time I could do it. So she was like late for something because she took all this other stuff upon herself. And in my mind, I was like, I could have went to the store.
Well, and you know that to me, I'm sorry.
No. I was just gonna say, like, I remember like early on in our relationship, someone told me something that I hold on to this day. And what she said to me was, she said, your partner cannot read your mind as much as you want them to be able to. They can't do it. So they only see what is outside. So your frustrations, your annoyances, whatever is happening, they see that, but they can't read your mind. So they don't always know that you want them to do a specific thing. So you gotta say it. And it can be really hard to do because I know for me sometimes I'm just like, you should know.
Well,
like you should know not to do such and such and such. Like that's just common sense to me. But I'm just saying.
That's a strong word there, common sense.
Right. Yeah, that's
you should know.
That's
common
sense ain't always
they're
common.
always common.
But sometimes, like sometimes you think about things that happen in your relationship. You're like, you see me struggling, you should know to help. And sometimes, what I have found in our relationship, sometimes it's hard for me to do, but I do try more. I'll be like, look, Charles, I need you to do such and such and such and such. And most times he'll be like, oh, okay, I'll do it. And then he does it. And I'm like, oh, that was so much easier than me just being angry over here, trying to do everything in the world, thinking that you're not seeing it. It's like
all by yourself.
But yeah, I think so. I think there's kind of two parts to this. I think the first part, especially when you're starting out, and especially if you're having trouble, meeting your spouse's needs, I think you have to communicate that up front. You should know to put the back tie in the bread. That's right. Deerich was with us.
Oh yes,
yes.
He was with us. He experienced it.
But I think that's like the basics, right? And I'm gonna use this as an analogy. It's like football, right? Like you have to call plays when you first start out. You can't just jump to running audibles. Audibles when you don't have to run the play. You just walk up and you do it. I think as a marriage grows, I think that's like
you might be missing some people with.
I know. I'm gonna come back. Don't worry. Don't worry. I'm gonna come back
because I'm already like what?
But the point. What I'm trying to bring home, what I'm trying to teach is this advanced technique that I learned called the 4-hour rule, and it's like at any given time, as a seasoned husband, I'm supposed to know my wife's needs for the next 4 hours.
No, I disagree. I disagree with that.
I understand what you're saying.
Okay, keep going.
But go ahead.
Keep going.
It's again because I've had some experience with her. I know when she's coming from the store, she needs help bringing in the groceries. She needs help to put away the food. She may need help to, help with the meal, help with the kids. Some of that is a mix of common sense, and then some of that is understanding just your spouse's expectations and needs. Like for me, like when I come home, I'm not one to want to talk about my day right away. So like Lovely knows when he comes home, he doesn't necessarily want to talk. I'll talk. I'll tell him about whatever's happening with Britney Spears and Justin Timberlake.
Really?
Like like that's like what she's had to, I think, understand, because for a while, especially
when we first got married,
she would be like, how's your dad? And be like, it's work. Like there's nothing to talk about. Like it's work. I did work and now I'm home. Like but it was this, and it was understanding and being able to anticipate it. So it's like calling these audibles, being able to understand, oh, my wife needs this, I'm gonna do this. So it's like when we first wake up, it's like, oh, to help her out, to help her get out the house, I'm gonna do X, Y, and Z. Like she needs to go to the gym, I gotta do this, or vice versa. So it's like this teamwork because you're in sync.
Yeah, and
But
you're
I think you
thinking
have
about that person.
You're right.
too.
You're thinking about that person, but I think you have to get to that point where you're able to. All right, we're gonna run this whole next series of plays on audibles. We don't need to call a huddle. No huddle moment. We just going.
I think you have to renegotiate it at various points in your relationship, right? To think about like families go through changes, right? You're together, you don't have any kids, then you have kids, they're really young, and then you have kids that are older. You have to create new plays, to keep with your analogy. You have to create new plays that fit, right? I think a lot of mothers would say, I want him to just do, like, the baby's crying, the baby needs a change, dinner needs to be made. Why can't they just see that? Like, those things are obviously, you smell it, you hear it, what's the problem? And so we operate under this assumption that, okay, we came into this marriage with this playbook and we're good. As long as we do these things, we're good. But that book has to be updated for whatever point in your marriage.
And that's why I was saying I disagree, because I think if you take that too literal, then you lose out on the fact that a lot of relationships fail or don't do so well when one person grows and the other person doesn't grow with them. And so and growth could be all kind of different things. Maybe there was a financial growth. Maybe there was a spiritual growth. Maybe there was a communication growth. I'm reading all these books. I think at one point we had that. Like, I was reading a bunch of books and I was like talking about concepts. And he was like, "When'd you start reading these books?" And I'm like my third book in, like, yo, like,
and he's sending me books. And I'm just like, yeah.
But then at one point, like, she was like, wait. And then, because there was something that happened, right? Because I was gaining new information and new knowledge about how to do things differently and in a better way, a gap happened. And in order to kind of update her playbook, like, she was like, I got to read this book. Because it was like a concept, like, even when I tried to explain it, she was like, yeah. And it was this book, The Road Less Traveled. And so, again, I think that's why I said, because I think if you lean too much to that, like, oh, I should, that's an assumption. And I think sometimes you might run an audible and you'll be like, oh, snap, that didn't work.
Right. But I think it comes from studying, right? Like, these people don't just like, and keep going too deep in this metaphor. They don't just do it off of film, right? Like, they've been working together, they've been doing workouts, like, they know each other's habits. Oh, he turned left after 3 yards and goes to the all right. But my point is, you gotta study your partner.
I agree.
So
I agree with that. Study your partner.
And I think that's really what that 4-hour rule is. I don't necessarily think it's something you have to stick to every 4 hours, but I think it's a way to remind yourself, hey, have I thought about my partner in the last little bit? Are there some things that maybe I could do to make their day easier? Or, like, I know that she went out to get groceries. I know she'll be back soon. Let me make sure that I'm dressed so that when, she comes in the door with the groceries, I'm ready to come out, so that, your spouse doesn't have to ask you. And it's those small things, I think, that make your spouse at least be like, hey, you're thinking of me. Because I know that with Charles and the, his 4-hour rule, he has become more thoughtful in a lot of different areas just because he thinks more about me, and I think that that's great. And that definitely is a thing, because sometimes, like, he'll even bring, so, like, one of Charles's thing is he can't do it now because, I'm working out now. But he used to just bring home snacks that I like, right? And so snacks or a drink or something like that. And it's like, at least in that moment, I'm also, like, one of my things is also gift giving, right? That's one of my love languages, is gift giving. So sometimes, like, he'll come home and bring me, my favorite drink and snack. And I'm like, oh man, he went to the store and thought about me. That's really sweet. So I think it does work itself out. And I think it's been good, at least for us.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's what I like what D. Rich said about, continuing to cultivate the environment that encourage people to renegotiate along. I also like how he keep capitalizing Journey.
Right. He over there trying to,
subliminally, like, hey, by the way, the name of my church is Journey.
Right.
And,
come Journey.
Maybe y'all should join us on this journey as we discuss marriage and relationships. Because they do have a family relationship thing coming up at the Journey site too. So we'll be plugging that too. But just to kind of round out, we could talk about communication. We can talk about love forever.
Can I say one more thing first?
You absolutely can.
You have to remember it's not always going to go well. It's not always going to go smoothly. And when it doesn't, that doesn't mean quit. That doesn't mean never do that again. That means that you just need to look at it and see whether or not growth, right? Look and see whether or not, like, was it not the right time? Was it not the right way? And to try it again. I definitely have moments. Even now I have moments. I remember there was a day recently, we ordered groceries. We are privileged enough to be able to do that. And the groceries came to the door. And the alert came on my phone that the groceries were at the door. And Pernell was doing something with the kids. And in my mind, I was like, he see that the groceries are at the door? You're not gonna go get the groceries? And instead of me saying, hey, groceries are here, can you go grab them? I very passive aggressively went to the door, got all groceries, throwing doors open in the kitchen. And I didn't say anything. And he was like, why'd you do that? You're a jerk. And I was like, groceries. But he knew me well enough to know what I was thinking. And he could read how I was feeling. And so it's not always going to go well. But that's where communication comes.
Absolutely.
Point to improve.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and we're running out of show. We didn't even get to our third topic.
No, I'm saying, like, this relationship stuff can go forever and ever and ever and ever. And I think part of let's bring this back, right? So we can do a wrap up at least, right? So love, again, I guess key points is love is an action. I think we all agree on that. Love is not the key to your marriage. It's communication. I think we can all agree on that, which is why we really started with those two things, right? So love is important. Communication is important. When you're communicating, you need to be deliberate.
Yes.
Right. A lot of times, don't make assumptions like this person should know. Right. As the brother D. Rich said, cultivate the environment that encourages people to renegotiate terms, because what worked 5 years ago ain't gonna work tomorrow. And that's important. What's some other takeaways y'all got?
I think one of the things that I've gotten is, you can't over communicate. It seems like listening like to you guys and
Charles would disagree.
I'm sorry.
Charles would disagree.
I know, but you can't over communicate. At least to me, it's always better, I think, that the person knows what you're clearly trying to say, so that way you don't have as many, issues on the other hand with I don't understand and da-da-da-da-da. Because I know, like, with us, like, that's one of our things. Like, sometimes, like, you say something and you don't necessarily think you mean it in a bad way, but it comes across wrong. So I think you can't over communicate. Just, kind of be forgiving with the other person as well. I think that's what also
Great.
Is being forgiven and giving them grace, even when your communication gets messed up or things like that. Love them through that, and loving someone through something doesn't mean accepting whatever the heck they give you.
Wait. There's a question in the comments.
I did see that. So yeah, so those are the things that I've.
Was your question about, are we going to talk about spirituality in a relationship?
Yeah, we'll get to it.
We ran out of show. We ran out of time today, but guess what? There's more time in February.
There's more coming. There's more coming.
Yeah.
So definitely leave the other questions that you guys want us to talk about.
Keep the questions coming. One of the questions that we left on social media was talking about being, saying sorry versus forgiving. And just, one of the things we just really want everybody to focus on is that a lot of times people will refer to their relationships as work. And it's not work, right? It's an investment that requires work, right? And so if you think of your relationship as an investment, then like you're pouring into it, like you want to see it grow, you want to see it build, you want to see it do better. But work, again, it's like kind of like Charles, like I went to work, now I'm home. If you're thinking that your relationship is work, you might want to frame that and be like, and think about your investment. Like you spend time on your investment.
And you have to put out on that investment, because sometimes that investment drops and you sit there like, I want to pull out of this investment. But if you hold,
gotta have it down in hand.
You hold, it will grow exponentially, and you keep
To
like
the moon. We want to take this relationship to the
trying to
moon.
grow it, and
That's right.
it will grow.
Take
So
it
I
to the
think
moon.
being an investment is really a really good way to describe a relationship. It's something that continuously is moving. You just have to hold and continue to grow on it. Yeah.
Oh,
This has been so much fun.
it has been
guys.
fun. We have to invite y'all back. I wasn't sure if y'all would be invited back to the show.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
It's okay. 'Cause the next time they have a show, I'm gonna let the kids go.
Well, we appreciate everyone for listening. We appreciate the conversation, the
Don't forget-
comments.
Yeah, don't forget, people should, any questions that they have, right, for us, the relationships, all that, drop them below, right?
Yes, drop them below. And yes, I did feel that. And D-Rich, I don't know about holding on to GameStop. I think that's not the best analogy.
No, GameStop ain't it. It's all about.
We want you to hold on to your.
We will talk about finances on another show.
Yeah.
But for now, we want everybody to understand that sometimes there will be bad news in a relationship.
Yeah.
But guess what?
Don't fear the bad news.
Hey.
What's the
Keep your mind and
heart?
heart focused, and always
Trust in the Lord.
yes.
Oh, y'all
You got it.
Boom.
All right. Thank you for joining us today. We want to see y'all back next week.
Week after next week.
Next week. Week after.
We will be contacting y'all. We didn't select it in the show, but guess what? We're gonna message y'all, and we're gonna just pick from those in the comments. We're just gonna pick, and you're just gonna get a message from the Saturday Morning Show saying, "Boom, you're getting a free gift."
You get a book. Not that many people. Just 3.
All right, we are 2 Christian couples.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And we
that's Chuck and Love.
and that's Zig and Zig. We out. Peace.
Bye.
Peace.
Bye.